Hello everyone and greetings from Russia. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Natasha and this video is a 2 years update of living in a tiny 45 square meters apartment in Russia. I will show you everything and discuss pros and cons of living in such an apartment in Russia. I'm walking through the typical Soviet neighborhood in Russia and you may notice this Khrushchevka behind me. Khrushchevkas are pretty old buildings that were built during the Soviet times. They're related to Nikita Khrushchev, who ruled the country in the last century. These buildings were built in the 50s, 60s years of the last century. My Soviet grandma lived in exactly the same apartment, but I live in a modern Russian apartment and let's go and look at this. I'm here. This is how a typical modern neighborhood looks in Russia nowadays. What I like in modern apartments is that the entrance and the hall always are very clean, in contrast with Soviet apartments. It's because in old buildings there are very old pipes and also a garbage chute, and they cause a bad smell inside of the building. The elevator is also very clean. It's actually not a very luxurious brand new building, it's just a regular modern building in Russia. That's very important to clarify. Welcome guys! I'm inside of the apartment and I'd like to share the main disadvantage of this apartment. It's that it's really very tiny. The size matters. Only 45 square meters. But it's very surprising. It's even not a very small apartment compared to other apartments in Russia. My apartment is considered as a one-bedroom apartment in Russia. It has one living room, one kitchen room, also the bathroom and the balcony, and a very small tiny room as a wardrobe. At first, the hallway. It's looking pretty small, but actually it isn't very tiny. It's not bad. You may look at this, just look at this size. We mostly have such places on the entrance to the apartment. There is a big cabinet here and a small cabinet for shoes. I bought all the furniture by myself. How it looks with lighting. Some call such apartments as a Евро-двушка in Russia, which means a two-bedroom apartment in the European style. It's crazy, right? Because it's completely not a two-bedroom apartment, which means that this apartment has a bigger kitchen room than the other one-bedroom apartments, because we have a lot of one-bedroom apartments that are like 33 square meters or so they are smaller than this apartment, and the kitchen room is smaller there than here. Welcome to my bedroom. I really love this bed. This color is very deep green and it's very beautiful, and I think it makes this bed looking more expensive than it is. Also, this chandelier, it's a cut price thing, but I love how it looks like. It's very beautiful and it's a real picture that my babushka presented to me. Look at these. 2000 year. Curtains have the same color as this bed has. It's not from the same collection or so, I just found them on the marketplace and bought them. Also I have this TV and air conditioner. It's very important here because the climate in Krasnodar is pretty hot in the summertime. I don't like the view from the window because there are other buildings, but so I live close to the city center and I couldn't avoid it. I would like to live in a bigger apartment, but I should say that I live in a big city. The population of Krasnodar, this is a city where I live in, is over 1 million people. So this is not a small town. As everywhere on earth, in Russia, the prices of properties in big cities are obviously higher than in some small towns and villages. Apart from air conditioner, I also have air humidifier. a very useful thing. I highly recommend you to buy it if you live in the hot climate or in the too cold climate. Also, if you use your radiators very often, it's a very useful thing. Unfortunately, I completely don't like this table and this chair. I don't like the table because it's very old. I bought it in IKEA when it was in Russia, so many years ago. And this chair is not that old. It's like a few years old, but it's completely uncomfortable. And I'm working near my computer almost the whole day, and it's just very, very bad for my back. My apartment is actually considered not a very small apartment in Russia compared to other one-bedroom apartments, because there are 30 square meters one-bedroom apartment and even 20 square meters one-bedroom apartments in Moscow, for example. I even saw such videos and I was completely shocked by the size of these apartments. I usually don't like a lot of decorations at my home, but there are a few sentimental things. For example, this panda and this shark. My close people presented them. This shark is very old. It's over 10 years. My bestie presented me this on my birthday. And also I have two small cabinets here. The bathroom. During the renovation, I wanted only this style of the tile because it's very, very fashionable and modern in Russia, and many do this and use such colors, you know. But now I got that it's very inconvenient when it comes to cleaning, because even it's completely clean, sometimes you may see some hair or some mess. Unfortunately, it turns dirty very fast. Everything else is pretty simple, as you may see. And my washing machine. I know in America a lot of people prefer also to have a dryer, but I don't have it, and in Russia very few people have it, unfortunately. If I had more space in my apartment, or if I had a house, I think I would buy a dryer also. After almost 2 years later, I'm still in love with this sink, although some told me that such sinks are very inconvenient and it's better not to buy such design, but I love it and I recommend it if you like this style. So, water. Another thing that I would like to discuss about is the area where this apartment complex is located in, because it's an advantage and a disadvantage at the same time. This area is very nice because it's very well developed and almost everything you need is here. There are a lot of supermarkets, there is even a McDonald's restaurant nearby, and there are 2 big grocery stores in this area in like 10 minutes by foot or 5 minutes by car. I think it's very efficient and it saves a lot of time. And it's a disadvantage because this area is very crowded. There are a lot of people all the time. Generally, a Soviet neighborhood is quieter than a modern neighborhood in Russia because there are almost no businesses on the ground or the first floors of Soviet buildings, Khrushchevkas, Brezhnevkas. But here in modern buildings, there are businesses in almost every building. In the building where I live in, there are businesses on the first 3 floors. The kitchen. Another picture. This is the Black Sea coast, and my mom's friend presented it to my mom many years ago, and next she gave it to me. My kitchen has a very similar ornament to the bathroom. As you may see, this one is very similar to the bathroom tiles. Some also asked me about the quality of tap water in Russia. I personally don't drink tap water. I'm using this water filter, but I also boil water before drinking it, so that's just my choice. You may ask, where do I save all my clothes in this tiny apartment if I don't have any big cabinet? I'm gonna show you my wardrobe room. It's a bit messy, but you know what I'm talking about. Another thing that I like living in this apartment is very low utility pay bills. I paid only $48 for everything for this apartment for the last month. And I think that's a good price. In Russia, in old apartments, utility pay bills are higher than in modern apartments. Also, I like that there is no gas in this building, and I don't like gas because I think it causes accidents from time to time and it could be very unsafe. Although I love Stalinkas. Stalinkas are Soviet buildings that were built during the Stalin's time, and they are mostly in a very good condition. They look very modern and very nice. They are renovated very often, but the price of Stalinkas are also higher than on Khrushchevkas. If you are new on my channel, you are probably curious how much do I pay for the rent for this apartment. I have to disappoint you, I don't, because I own this apartment. I bought it a bit more than 2 years ago, but next I did the renovation of this apartment because it was completely not ready for living, just gray walls, and that is all. I shared all the information about the price of this apartment and how much did I spend on this apartment in another video. Watch this video if you're interested in this topic, but keep in mind that the prices are changing. The ruble-dollar rate is changing also, and I think now the price of this apartment is a bit higher than it was 2 years ago. When I published my first video about living in this apartment, I got a lot of questions about the design of this apartment, and some of people thought that my apartment looks very boring, but I actually don't think so. I think it's minimalistic and I love this style. I don't like when there are a lot of different decorations, photos, toys, other stuff. It's just not my cup of tea. As for my plans for the future, I'm planning to move to a small town or a small village in the region. So I'm planning to stay in the Krasnodar region because I love it, because I like the climate here and the people, everything is very good here. I like this region. But I'm not going to live my whole life in this tiny apartment for sure. And the price of such apartments is actually not that low. You can buy a small house in some village for the same price. You may ask me, but why did I choose buying this small tiny apartment instead of buying a house 2 years ago? Actually, I didn't imagine my life outside of Krasnodar at that time because all of my close people live here, my business staff is here, and I have never lived in a village in my life. I always lived in big cities and I'm feeling pretty comfortable in such places, but something changed in my mind, and now I think I would rather live in a house, in a bigger house, in a village, instead of living in a small apartment. I think Russia is also changing because I remember when I was a child, when you need something, you need to go to the city. Now there are a lot of supermarkets almost everywhere. Also, we have very developed marketplaces, so we have analogs of Amazon in Russia, and to deliver something you need is easy peasy. So now I look at village life and think like, I love it, and I think I would like to move there. Okay, this video is coming to the end. Write in the comments what do you think about my apartment. Would you like to live in such an apartment, or you didn't like it? Share your opinion. I read all the comments. Have a nice day, have a nice summer, and God bless you.